If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hardy Fiber Cement Siding is proven to withstand water, pests, and fire better than wood-based siding. And it looks better while doing it. Hardy Siding has been chosen for 10 million homes and counting. See the proof at jameshardy.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Season 4 premiere of your Bish Therapist podcast. What? And today, I am so happy to have my first episode back be with my BFF, Mandy Slutsker. Hi, Mandy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me back.
Are you kidding? Thank you for, having M&M Hour with me today on M&M Hour, what you all can expect. And, first I'll say, before I even get into that, last season, you were my first guest back. And this was before we decided to do M&M Hour, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And you were my most listened to episode, by the way, on my whole podcast.
That's so incredible because I feel like nobody knows who I am.
No, here's what's funny, Mandy.
I think they were just excited that it was your season 3 premiere.
No, it was you because people, I swear to you, they're like, M&M Hour is my favorite. I wish I could hang out with you and Mandy. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure people like us together more than me alone.
It's like, you can hang out with me. I'm like, totally available.
Well, listen, girl, one day we're going to do M&M live shows. We're going to get that going because we're local to each other. And I know there's people in this tri-state area that would for sure come. For everyone listening, be excited because I'm just, 2025 for me is about manifesting and putting all my hopes and dreams just out in the universe.
I love that.
So I'm manifesting live shows. I'm manifesting, live MMs, and we'll see what happens. So thank you, my dear, for being here. Everyone loves you dearly and loves us together. And, honestly, today I'm grateful, too, to have you here because we're going to discuss some very challenging topics. And in case anybody hasn't noticed, the world is in a really challenging place, which Mandy and I have, individually been through it the last couple of weeks. And so this, for all of us, is going to be a sorbet, if you will. A palate cleanser, a refresher, a laugh, a kiki,
an amuse-bouche.
Thank you. Exactly. An hors d'oeuvres.
Oh my God.
Is it however you spell that? I just remember Ramona talking about hors d'oeuvres. Like she said it so wild, but I forget completely how she said it. Because it's spelled like hors d'oeuvres. And I think she said it like that. But anyway, I forget. So as you can see, we're in the mood to be silly. I'm already rambling in my intro, which is always the start of a fun podcast. So today what we're going to talk about is Real Housewives of New York. And yes, we're going to mention it all. We're going to talk about the tough stuff. And then we're also going to talk Real Housewives of Beverly Hills because since I've been taking my break, I have not really covered Beverly Hills very much except for on my Instagram posting interpretations and stuff. So, Mandy, let's get into it.
Let's.
You know what? Let's start with Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Because again, I feel like it's, speaking of a palate cleanser, for me, Beverly Hills, the last episode finally started to feel like, okay, Dorit and Kyle made up. They're having lantern failures, dead birds on the beach. We're having a kiki. What are you thinking in general, Mandy, about the season of Beverly Hills?
I really enjoy the season. I love Bose. I love her.
Same.
I just enjoy her in a way I haven't enjoyed a housewife in a while. I like everything she says. I am so interested in her train of thought. She's very logical and process oriented, and I relate to that a lot. So I can follow, not every housewife you can follow their thought patterns because they're kind of all over the place, which is most of them. And then when she talks, I follow absolutely everything she says makes sense to me. even if I would disagree, I'm like, oh, I see you, Bose. Like, I see you. And I think her and Dorit's relationship is so sweet. And that she was on Watch What Happens Live for the first time, and Dorit went with her, and it was her birthday. And, that she was there to support Bose, even though Bose had undergone a loss of her house that she had spent, decades building. I don't think it was the house I don't know if it was the house that we've seen in the show or not. Because she, I think, has two, because she is amazing and she's very successful.
Is a badass who just is a boss and just prints money.
I was kind of skeptical of her at first, just the way that they sold her to us, not her selling herself, but the way that the show was trying to be like, oh, she's worked here and she's worked there. And I'm like, okay, but if you keep moving around, how good are you? And if you're really big in the corporate world, you wouldn't be on reality TV. You wouldn't have time. So what is it, kind of a thing? And I see where she is. She has done that kind of work, and she is now doing her own thing. And this came up, and she was like, sure, why the hell not? And I don't know. I feel like her and Dorit are almost like a Mary and Angie from Salt Lake, in that it's such an unlikely pairing, but it works so perfectly.
And it's so genuine. You can tell that it legitimately, these four people that we're talking about have legitimate love, respect, and admiration for one another. And I didn't realize how much I feel like I missed that on The Housewives, because we're so used to just being castmates and coworkers and all of that. But it started with people who just really loved each other. And so I'm super grateful to see that. I personally have never, ever in Housewives history seen a better communicator than Bozoma St. John.
Right. She's such a good communicator. And then there's people like Kyle who just are subpar communicators, right? Because she doesn't know how to be direct. And so she uses a lot of words to say almost nothing. And we saw, this past week when Sutton tried to be like, well, what exactly are you apologizing for? And she couldn't articulate it. She just couldn't. And I think Sutton was being slightly cruel, but having a little fun, twisting the knife, being like, okay, so let me get this straight, and then she's like, for everything. It's Kyle is not equipped to deal with women who speak directly. She has always been with people who speak indirectly. And that has been the way Housewives of Beverly Hills has been for so long. And all of a sudden, we've got a couple direct communicators, and we're off.
We are off. And you know what? I think newbies like Boz and Bronwyn are scaring the OGs, because I feel like they're such a great caliber of housewife that we haven't seen in a long time, that it makes the other housewives have to work harder, right? Have to strive for more. And ultimately, I feel like the fans, I personally love that, because if I have to see one more screaming match in a sound bath, I'm just going to, I can't do that anymore. And so Boz does present, and
is
you
it
can
Boz or Bose?
That's a great question.
I thought it was Bose.
Is it Bose? Have I been saying it wrong this whole time?
Have I been saying it wrong this whole time?
Oh, geez.
It's so hard because when they say her full name, I'm like, oh, yeah.
But I think it's
Bozoma.
Bozoma. Right. Okay, so you're right. Bose. I've been saying Boz, correct? You know what? I'm going to blame my Chicago accent for that. That I just want to call her Boz. I just want to say, hey, Boz.
I know. I think it's the Midwesterner in me that also wants to do that. And I have been trying not to, because I'm pretty sure that's not it. But I love the way
Mandy.
Dorit says her name. She's like, Bose, with that, and Bose and Hermes and Bose. She's just...
Dorit is enamored, and I get it, because it is funny, because I feel in the past what I heard Bose say was that Dorit loves to talk and Bose loves to listen. And truly, I do think that has to be a component for someone who's going to be a BFF to Dorit. You have to skew more on the listening side than the talking side, right? I mean, Dorit's a lovely person, but that's for sure one of her character defects.
I think Dorit, and I could be misreading this, but I do believe that she wants real love in her life, in her marriage, in friendships, and she has found it with people who are not as genuine, right? Like Kyle I like Kyle on the show, but she is not someone who is this like warm, open, genuine, sturdy person. And PK, I think, has not been providing the support that she would need in a partner. And so she's kind of been doing everything on her own and not opening up to anyone because she can't trust anyone, because people in her world are untrustworthy. They leak things, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And all of a sudden she finds this woman who just genuinely cares about her and genuinely wants positive things, because this woman is full in who she is. She's not broken. She is widowed and she is healing from that. Yep. And she has a daughter and she has a boyfriend and she has a business, but like she's always striving for more and better, and she wants that for everyone else too. She's not someone who believes in a zero-sum game, which I think almost every housewife does, which is if you win, I lose. And I hate that kind of mentality because it breeds competition, especially among women. And I think we should be lifting each other up. There's space for everyone.
I agree.
And I just think Dorit saw like something genuine, right? And she just was like, oh my gosh, this is the kind of friendship I've been longing for and trying to find in all the wrong places.
I imagine it would be like finding water in the desert. Mm-hmm. It's like, to find someone who sees you and you click with and you connect with, it's just priceless. When you're kind of marooned on Housewives Island, which is all like backstabby and faux, I just appreciate every single thing about Bose's presence. I also want to say that I feel really proud of Garcelle. Mm-hmm. Showing her beach house that comes with like a whole ass beach. I was like, you like snaps. You go, Garcelle. One thing that I love about Garcelle is she's a hustler and she's a legacy builder. And I just love and appreciate that she's trying to pass on generational wealth instead of generational trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty badass.
And I'm glad that we got to see the beach part, because I feel like when we've seen it before, I'm like, where's the beach? It doesn't feel like it's near the beach. Like, I know it's supposed to be near the beach because all the houses look like they're near the beach, but like I have not yet seen water. And I love the golf cart life. I'm all about golf cart life. If you can live somewhere where you can take a golf cart places, you are winning. You are winning. I can't wait till my dad gets a golf cart. He's been looking into it.
Same. And I can't wait to go visit y'all and drive in it. I'd be like, beep, beep.
He is just, living the life. He's going on walks to try and find his alligator every day.
Well, for those of you who don't know, Mandy's dad and Joyce, you refer to her as?
Yeah, my stepmom, Joyce. Yeah.
Your stepmom. Okay. They built a gorgeous home in Florida. I've gotten the tour virtually, and it is gorgeous, honey. And that man deserves every single bit of it. You all do. And I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, we were trying to record, and I was like, I'm so sorry. There's all of these like rugs being delivered and laid out at the moment.
and then I was like, but are they Jill Zarin rugs? Are they Jill Zarins?
It's like, if you want, I can like FaceTime you. You can like look at what's happening, but I don't think I could record for another like 15 minutes, because it's like there's like a rug in my room, and there's and Joyce is trying to oversee all of the different, art coming in and chairs coming in, and it's hard to keep track of for everyone. And like some days, like someone like I think I was coming to visit like a week ago or two, and they're like we were talking, and she's like, oh my gosh, the outdoor furniture is here. And I was like, I thought you said it was coming Thursday. She's like, I don't really know what I thought.
That's a good life right there. I love that.
She's just, she's not the best with like dates and specificities and details. But
nobody's perfect.
But
Mandy.
she knows
we
enough, right? No,
stuff.
but she's like, it's because she's like very chill, right? She's like, okay,
she is very chill. I wish for some of that energy.
My dad and I talk about this all the time, about how we try to get in her mentality, and she just can't understand how neurotic and anxious we all are and why. She just doesn't get it.
Well, she needs to teach a class right now, I think. And I would take that class. I wouldn't even offer to teach it. I would take that class. Because,
I know. I'm like, well, how does she do it? And my dad was like, she's not a neurotic Jew like the rest of us in the family.
I'm not a Jew either, but I'm still neurotic as hell.
Yeah.
So maybe honorary.
You might be honorary because we're all a bit neurotic and like have like major anxiety disorders.
Yeah, well, there you go. Anxiety disorder for life. Yay. But one thing, right? One thing I definitely feel that I had some thoughts, Mandy, that I wanted to run by you, see what you thought in terms of like what's going on with Kyle. And here's the thing. I have to be very honest in terms of Kyle gave me such a leg up in this thing that I'm doing right now. And there is part of me that I do feel like, I don't owe her. We haven't talked. It's not like she talked to me. She reposted something and it got me like 5,000 followers overnight. I'm not joking. And no one else has done anything like that. And so I guess there's a part of me that maybe I give her too much of the benefit of the doubt, or I don't know. But what I can say is I feel like she's getting divorced. She's becoming an empty nester. And Erica made a really astute observation that, when we go through it, our behaviors can be ugly. I mean, all humans can have ugly behaviors when you're pushed to the brink. And so even though trauma, as we all, I talk about this all the time, it's not an excuse to be an asshole. But I do think Kyle is projecting like, she's losing her marriage. Her children are now leaving. And now I feel, because of the things we've just talked about, she feels as the queen bee of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills for 14 seasons, I think she feels a little threatened. And I think that she's projecting some of her fear and worry and all those feelings like onto Dorit and onto Bose and like onto the ladies. That's kind of my theory. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that too. I also think that she was raised in a way where you don't communicate directly. And for whatever reason, there are people that are raised that way that truly do not know how to express themselves. And it is confusing for me. It's another Jewish thing that we talk about in my family and how we are extremely direct communicators. And that is considered offensive to the other members of our family that are lovely, sweet, Lutheran, Norwegian, people, and they're just like, I don't understand how you guys are yelling at each other. And we're like, we're not yelling.
We're just talking.
What
do
you
mean? Yeah. And listen, I grew up in a big Italian family. Same thing. We talk loud. We talk constantly. And if you're not from that culture, it definitely feels
abrasive.
Odd. It
feels abrasive. And I don't know that she has the vocabulary truly to express herself, or that she has the confidence, or that she has any experience doing that. And because of that, she lies. And I don't even know if she knows that she's lying half the time. She is not saying everything. She is leaving so much unsaid. And it is very frustrating as a viewer to watch her, because you're like, okay, but you're leaving out all these other things. And then you leave pieces and, what are they, like breadcrumbs or something, where she says, well, I'm examining my sexuality. And then when Garcelle says, so if you want to be a lesbian, be a lesbian. And then Kyle's offended by that. It's like, well, you brought up sexuality. You are, we're, gallivanting around the country and the world with a much younger woman that many people believe to be your partner. And you're hinting at it, but you won't actually come out and say it. And that is very frustrating, specifically because of all of the flashbacks that we saw this past episode of her asking others to be honest. Or if something is brought up on camera, basically, or in the group, then you have to address it. And you see Denise Richards saying, no, you don't. Right? And so now exactly she's playing the role of Denise, where she's like, oh, this is something I don't feel comfortable talking about. And it's like, baby girl, you don't get to pick and choose. And the stuff with Denise happened off camera. Everything we're watching with Kyle was on camera. We watched her get tattooed with this woman. We watched her sing along when she was practicing her song. We watched her giggle and act like a little schoolgirl over her. And you're telling me nothing is happening? And then now we can't even acknowledge her name. It's just very, very annoying. And then everything with Mo, I'm sorry, I know you want to protect your daughters. I know you want to protect him and his reputation. What the fuck happened in your marriage? Explain it. Tell us. It doesn't just overnight. What did he do? What happened between you guys?
Right. Right. I think your points are so valid because we did see flashbacks of 14 years of Kyle in that voice saying, just be honest, just tell the truth. And I think it's wild because she's never had a season where people really come for her in 14 years. I mean, really never, which is kind of insane if you think about that. And I think that she is the type of person, we've talked about her history with Big Kathy and the family and how she grew up. And I think that those Kathy, Kyle, and Kim learned some really, really difficult strategies growing up when it comes to managing emotions and expressing things. But your points are so valid, and I understand being frustrated. I think that when humans tend to correct, they tend to overcorrect. So I feel like last season with Morgan Wade, it was like we were all in on that. And Morgan was all over filming. And then she was like, oh, wait, I need to fix this. And then boom, overcorrects. And now we can't even mention her name. And so both are ridiculous, right? Both are ridiculous. Both she needs to understand and take some accountability for. And I think one thing I noticed just physiologically is like when she talks and she's having a hard time, like her voice crackles and it almost like restricts when she's upset or trying to talk about something. And the reason I point that out is I think that's really telling. We all have nonverbal communications or things that happen when we're trying to express something, but we really don't want to express it, right? There's like incongruent behavior there. And I think that, Kyle had a dinner with just a select few of the women, because I think she wanted to manipulate the situation. I think she feels like she's being left out and left behind, and she doesn't like that. And so, I think we're seeing for sure a lot of lying, a lot of manipulating. But the wildest thing, Mandy, was when Kyle spent, I don't know how many weeks dying on Meme Hill. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And last episode, she said, and I quote, I feel bad about PK because he actually has been a good friend. And I was like, girl, pick a lane. Like, what are you talking about? You just spent all these weeks swearing that it wasn't that. And it just drives me wild.
Yeah, she thinks she can have it both ways. Like, if you just send memes back and forth, that's one thing, but that's not really what most texts are. You can send memes and jokes back and forth with a friend in between dialogue. And she was having dialogue with him. Is it inappropriate dialogue? No, I don't believe so. She had an independent friendship with Dorit's husband, who also had an independent friendship with her husband. So it makes sense that they were close. Just own it. And I don't know that it makes you not a girl's girl to like maintain a friendship with your friend's ex, just depending on how that friendship is and, that kind of a thing. But I do think there needs to be some openness. If I was her, I would say, oh my gosh, I am here for you. Let me know what you need. I'm going through it too. And I would like to be, a support system. And I'm also going to reach out to PK and let him know that I care about him and I hope he can lean on Mo and, that I'm here if he ever needs me to. Just something like that. Like, you want to...
I think she could have said a million things, variations of that, right?
Variations of that, just to and then if Dorit said, you know what, it actually makes me really uncomfortable if you message with him, and then she would know right away, okay, that's a boundary I'm actually going to have to pick. And it sucks when you're asked to pick sides. I don't think friends should ever ask, but I do understand if you're dealing with like an ex-husband or if you're dealing with a contentious child, like situation to try and figure out, who has custody. It's a different situation.
Speaking of that, I definitely want to talk about, because I've had some thoughts on this that I know people have had varied opinions on. So Dorit shared that her 10-year-old son, and, I know these kids' names, I just don't always feel super cozy using them because they're kids. So, but her 10-year-old son asked specifically, are you and daddy divorced? And then she said no. And then he said, did you post something on Instagram? And I was just like, oh my God. And so I feel like for me, adults do wild things when it comes to quote unquote protecting children. And I think that the thing that I just know is children are these tiny, intuitive little assessors that can't be fooled. They don't have, the world hasn't destroyed them, and they don't have the ability to lie or be, they're just these little amazing creatures. And I think that having a child have intuition about something going on and to not tell the child in a developmentally appropriate way, right? I mean, there's certain things you could never or should never tell a 10-year-old. But I think there's a difference between accidentally gaslighting a child who knows that something's different and addressing it in a developmentally appropriate manner. What do you think?
No, I agree. And I actually don't think there's anything off limits for a 10-year-old. I don't think there's anything off limits for any child. As long as you address things in a developmentally appropriate way, right. Some kids don't have the benefit of not being able to, I don't want my kid to know about death. Well, what if their parent died?
Right.
How are you supposed to address that? You're supposed to tell them that never happened? Are you supposed to lie to them? No, you have to talk to them about it in a developmentally appropriate way. And the same goes for every single uncomfortable topic. There are ways to do it. I'm not an expert in it, but, there's plenty of child psychologists, there's plenty of therapists, there's plenty of pediatricians, all of whom know how to help navigate, especially considering the specific child, right? It's not like any 10-year-old can be told anything. It's like, what is your child like? Are they an anxious child? Are they an inquisitive child? And I just think that you're doing a disservice because it's more that it makes you uncomfortable. That's how I feel. And I know that
that's exactly right.
I know that
that's exactly right.
They're helping, but actually then you put your kid in a situation where they know something's off and they know mom's not telling them. And then you're putting them in an uncomfortable position of having to ask you.
Well, right. And then it puts children in an uncomfortable position where at some point, children develop, it's called magical thinking, that they think that they cause everything, right? If someone dies, they caused it. Because it's a very important developmental concept. And I think that, especially in this age of social media, it's an insult to her children to try to bubble wrap them and accidentally, invalidate them in the process. And I think that as a therapist, obviously, as you mentioned, and we both come from families, which we just talked about, that are pretty direct. For people who don't subscribe to that, it's very uncomfortable. But for people like us, it's uncomfortable to not do that, right?
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable for me to not have people be direct and to have people beat around the bush. And, Kyle's monologue of her, I'm sorry with everything but the I'm sorry. And it's like, people don't realize to have a fully functioning, healthy relationship, you have to have those difficult conversations. And that's true with children, parents, siblings, spouses, partners, whoever. That's just how it is. Now, before we move to RHONY, because we could talk about all of this for a million years, the one thing I did want to bring up is that PK and Dorit has talked a lot about PK's sobriety. And you and I have talked before about this. I've kind of had issues with that, specifically the way that she's talked about it. She talks about it from a way of like she doesn't understand addiction, which is fair. Some family members really don't, right? In fact, a lot of family members don't. And there's family education programs and things like that. But this episode, Dorit claims that PK's sponsor came over, they had a conversation, the three of them out in the backyard, and PK's sponsor was the one who recommended a separation, and everyone just said, okay. And I was like, what are you talking about? Dorit sincerely said, I still don't know if PK wants this or if he was just doing what a sponsor told him. That wasn't a direct quote, but it was basically the gist of it. And so, okay, here's a couple of things I have to say about this, and then I would like to get your thoughts. In the 12-step program of AA, which I am extraordinarily familiar with for multiple reasons, is a sponsor is a senior member, should be a senior member of the group who provides support and guidance to a newcomer. Now, all helpers are not created equal. And a lot of times, helpers who are helping or trying to help people to heal instead of really doing the work often do a lot of damage. And I had people on my Instagram comment about, I have a lot of people in recovery who follow me, and it posted about, I've had sponsors who it was inappropriate and, they did suggest these things and et cetera, et cetera. So my point is that I don't like how Dorit is kind of framing this whole addiction piece. I think it's insensitive and it's inaccurate, and also I feel like she needs to take some accountability for her role in the downfall of her marriage instead of blaming PK's sponsor. What do you think?
I think I have a different approach.
Okay.
I think that if PK wanted a separation, he should have asked for a separation, that it's extremely not okay to have a third party.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No.
What?
But I blame PK for that.
Oh,
I blame
I see.
him
Yeah.
for allowing that to happen. He is not without
Oh God, yeah.
like
he
what's
has
I don't know what the
for
word
sure.
is. Agency. He has
Yeah.
agency. He's actually had more agency than she has in this entire marriage. He's always had the upper hand with her. And I think he's leveraged it. He's kind of done whatever he's wanted to do this entire marriage. He spends weeks away from her, weeks away from the kids, is not that involved in their lives. And then when they have a recital, comes in his front row acting like he is there for everything. No, you're not. And I think she has done the majority of the work with raising the children and keeping the home and taking care of the dog and cleaning up everything that he left in his wake from his addiction. And part of the 12 steps is apologizing, right? And taking ownership.
A huge part.
And I don't know that he's done that, which makes it really hard for her to apologize too. And if they're not having open, constructive dialogue, if he's yelling all the time, then I don't know how she would be in a position to even think about her role, because she's in a defensive position. And when you're in a defensive position, it's not very easy to be introspective. And it sounds like he's not having a lot of open communication with her. So it's quite difficult for her to, when he said, I feel like, when they sat down to dinner in the beginning of the season, and he said, I feel like you emasculate me, something like that, that it was like, she's like, this is the first time I'm hearing this from you. And he's like, well, I've said it before. And she's like, you're screaming. Like, I don't know if you mean it. I don't know, but you're saying this now. This is the first time I'm hearing it. So it sounds like he's not really expressed himself in a way that is healthy. And I don't think he gets a pass just because he's in recovery. I feel like he's using it as a reason to be able to do whatever he wants. And I'm not saying that like he's not truly in recovery and all of that, but it sounds like his yelling and all of that is not helpful. And his then not communicating with her is not helpful. And I don't think he pulled his, kept up his side of the bargain, unless when they had kids, they discussed that she would provide 95% of all support for children and that she was okay with that. I just can't get over him not being physically at the home raising children. Like you have children and you're physically not there. And when your wife is away, a nanny is with them. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that
is insane.
Wild. That is wild. And to be clear, I do fully agree with you about everything you said in terms of like being in recovery is not an excuse. It's not like PK is responsible for all of this as well. I guess I just wish that Dorit would stop dragging recovery in a way and just like drag PK. You know what I mean? Like, drag
I feel like
him.
She's not dragging recovery. And there was maybe a couple weeks ago on the after show where how she spoke about recovery definitely seemed different. It felt like she had gone to Al-Anon and maybe spent some time. So I think she was just saying, like, I don't understand his sobriety because he won't explain this process he's going through.
Sure. And that is why there are family programs. So the inpatient rehab that I worked at, they have a family education program because it is important. Addiction is a family disease, and meaning everyone in the dynamic is impacted, and there are trickle-down issues, right? So it's like if PK's not communicating and Dorit's not communicating, then they're not communicating to their kids. And so it's just like a microcosm of like a bigger issue. But I agree. I think that PK has a lot of work to do. And I just hope that, I just hope that they find happiness and that their kids, one thing that just makes me wild is like when parents don't acknowledge like kids' feelings and just like want to hope that they're happy and everything's better. And I just like hope now, hearing what you've said, you're right, that Dorit is a little bit more educated and aware, which in fairness, like, we have to gain that. You know, it's not something, unless you're a therapist, you don't have that knowledge. So I think that's a good point. One last thing I'll say before we move to New York is Sutton is so rude. I can't.
She's
can't deal with
rude
her
and
anymore.
she tries to get it away with being awkward. And it's like, no, you're rude and you invalidate people's feelings. You don't let them express themselves. Yeah. She was saying something very real. Everyone was relating to her in that moment. Everyone was waiting for her to share more about how she felt. And then Sutton was just like, we got to get on the bus. We got to get moving. And without even being like, oh my gosh, I feel for you. I'm wondering, I hate to, stop this conversation short. We're a bit late. Yeah. I'm wondering, could we continue this conversation in the car? I really want to hear more. And
of course.
Right. Like something like that. But she is so, and people say it's awkward. And I'm like, no, she's just.
No, it's not awkward.
She's rude.
No. She's rude. She's rude. I think she's entitled. And I think how should I say this? I think she has some personality characteristics that have been there for a long time. And she just gets away with it because she's Southern and she's cute. She's rich. So
and I think
I'll
she's like a lovely person and a good friend to many people. And, people seem to really enjoy her. Garcelle seems to enjoy her. Jennifer Tilly seems to enjoy her. Like, there are people who definitely get along with her. I'm not sure how much of this is like, how is she always? And how much of it is her being a little bit different because cameras are rolling. And so she's trying to poke. And I think that is why Erica gets annoyed, because Erica's kind of like, would you say this if the cameras weren't around? That's kind of what I get from Erica's faces.
Yeah, Erica this season
her.
is just like, I'm loving her this season. She just doesn't give a
I also love how much she appreciates Jennifer Tilly's stuff.
My God,
she like really appreciates nice stuff. I don't.
Yeah.
Like, I looked at that boat Louis Vuitton thing and I'm like, it's the color of poop, and why would anyone want that? Like, I'm sorry.
I would love it.
I think Louis Vuitton is like, it's like brown on brown, to a color I don't enjoy very much. I don't think Louis Vuitton is attractive. That's just me. Other people may look at it and be like, wow, these varying shades of shit. Just look at their worth $15,000 or whatever it is. Like, okay, you boo, I'll take like a, nice colored Chanel.
Sure, I get it. Oh,
I just remember going to college. I didn't grow up with a lot of brands. I'm sure they've made their way to Minneapolis. But when I was growing up, it was like Doc Martens were a brand, and I'm not sure what else. Like, maybe Kate Spade. The Tiffany.
Jelly shoes were Tiffany. Yeah.
Maybe Tiffany like heart necklace or something like that. But people weren't really obsessed with that. And then I go to college with a bunch of chicks from the Northeast.
Oh, damn.
Oh my God.
And they were
wearing their
Chanel
Uggs and their Lululemon pants and and Louis Vuitton was huge. And I couldn't, as someone who'd never seen it before, I was like, brown is not a color I would choose, right? And I would want my initials. I wouldn't want somebody else's initials. That was just my reaction to it. And I was just like, oh my God, people spend that much on those bags and on like luggage. At GW, people had Louis Vuitton luggage, like housewives style. These are like college students.
I'm like, how do you afford? So here's the thing. I'll tell you a quick story before we move on to New York. So when I turned 40, this was 4 years ago, because in April I'll be 44, was my 40th birthday and my 5th anniversary of being in remission from ovarian cancer, which was the first cancer I had. And so I took myself to King of Prussia Mall and I went right into Louis Vuitton and I bought myself a Louis Vuitton purse and I love it and I use it all the time. And every time I use it now, I'm going to think of you.
No!
And think of shit.
No, but the thing is that everyone likes their own thing. Like, everyone
Mandy,
has different styles, and it's not my style.
Of course, I totally get it. It's so weird.
I also don't like the Gucci thing with the red and the brown and the green.
Yeah. See, I'm not a Gucci person either. I totally get it. I get it. Well, speaking of fashions, RHONY, what is so fascinating to me about part one of this reunion is that the women they all slayed. And I don't care what people say about Jenna Lyons in terms of, showing up in a bathrobe, but I'm just like, every one of them was true to their fashion, and I thought they all looked fabulous.
I did too. I didn't think Jenna Lyons looked fabulous, though.
Well, what certainly wasn't fabulous about Jenna Lyons with her $1,500 bathrobe is that she literally told Andy on camera that she had planned to return it. And I was like, wait a second. On Real Housewives of Salt Lake City right now, Whitney dragged Lisa for returning clothes. And the women didn't say a peep. And I'm like, so maybe you don't have any money. Like, why on earth? I could even afford a $1,500. I mean, not afford. I could pay for it, but
yeah.
I'd have to live in it, for a couple of months. But anyway, it seems like for someone like her, it just seemed like such an odd move, right?
Well, especially something that you allegedly don't have many garments on underneath. So it's like, especially something like that, it's like almost like returning
underwear,
a bathing suit. Like, that's gross that you wore. Like,
yeah,
no,
your
if you
nips
didn't
are in it. Like,
yeah,
that's
I thought it was weird, and I don't think she looked good. And maybe people think it's high fashion, but I think I would have rather seen her hair styled or a little more makeup on her or something. She just looked like she kind of got out of the shower, and I don't think that's chic. But again, other people probably do, and I am no fashionista. It's just I know what I like. That's the thing. It's like, I'm not a fashion person. I just know if I like something or don't like something. I thought everyone else, I mean, Jessel, oh my goodness, beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Uba, and her makeup looked like the best makeup I've ever seen on anyone. Like, she looked so stunning. And size dress. Oh my God. It was gorgeous. Like, all of them. And actually, I think my favorite was Raquel. Because it was multiple colors. And her hair, I love her hair. I feel like her hair is art.
I totally agree. Her whole aesthetic is art. She is
her
just
jewelry
and everything about her. Even her personality, I'm like, you're a piece of art. She just has this beautiful personality that I feel like shines through everything she does. I can't even explain it. I just don't feel like there's people like that a lot anymore. And I just appreciate her so much. I will say that, before we start talking about it, I will give a trigger warning because we are going to be talking about sexual abuse. We are going to be talking about, the things that have happened between Uba and Brynn. And I just want to make sure people, that matters. And so for people who need to tune out, please do that. But what I found the most interesting watching the finale episode and then reunion part 1 is Brynn's. It wasn't necessarily what happened. It was her reaction to what happened over and over and over. And even now, if you look on social media, I know you're not on it a lot, Mandy, which good for you because it's the worst.
I'm on it just for work things, not for fun stuff.
Well, we need to get you a Finsta, girl.
Dude, I'm like, oh no, for my Instagram, it's fun, but I'm then not on Instagram during the day. I'm on Twitter reading Politico reporters, minute by minute updates of shit.
Yeah, I know. You gotta stop doing that. But anyway.
I have to.
I know. It's your job.
And I have to watch hearings. I watch confirmation hearings for my job.
Mandy, I can't. I can't with that. I feel like, so on social media, after all of this rhetoric, Brynn knows exactly why people are upset. She knows exactly why the group is upset. And she's just dog in fire meme saying this is fine. She has not posted anything about anything. No apologies. The article that came out in Rolling Stone, she didn't even post that. And it was her article.
She posted it.
Brynn
That's
did?
how I saw it. Yeah, I think.
Well, okay, if she posted it, I thought she didn't post it, but if she did post it, oh wait, you know what? She did post it, but she didn't say anything about it.
No,
was
she
just
turned comments off, and I don't think she had a
okay, that was it.
But do you know when we first had this instinct about her was when the episode aired where she called Uba an angry Black woman, you don't want to appear like an angry Black woman, and I want Oliver to want to marry you. Those comments. And she had a post that was sort of like an apology, but wasn't, and was not apologizing for any of the things that she had done. It felt so such a miss. You say that you work in PR, but this is not what a PR person would tell you to write after like these like multiple episodes where you look pretty terrible.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so that was kind of my first instinct of like, oh, maybe she just doesn't get it. Like she does really terrible things and she thinks, oh, that's not me.
Well, here's my theory on that, is that Brynn has such a severe history of severe neglect. And actually, I do want to bring this up for a second. There's something called ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experience.
Yes, it's an 18-point scale. Depending on how many adverse childhood experiences you have, it is correlated with when you're an adult with mental health problems, addiction issues, that kind of stuff, having a parent who's incarcerated, dealing with neglect, dealing with a parent dying or a parent having an untreated mental health issue or an untreated substance abuse issue
Dang, girl, you were prepared. We didn't even prepare for that. And you just rattled them off.
You forget where I work.
I love you. No, I don't forget. You are one smart-ass cookie, girl.
It's a whole basis.
It's a whole thing, okay? Yeah. And so one thing I'll share, I won't share my particular score because it's very personal, but mine is hella high. Okay? Mine is so high that it is an absolute miracle that I am here. And what I will say about it is that the only reason I am here functioning and surviving and thriving is I work so hard every day, actively, mentally, physically, spiritually, all of it. It's active work. And I think Brynn, unfortunately, because of her history of very severe adverse childhood experiences, which I imagine she would score pretty high on that, she has just dissociated, which I think has helped her survive, right? When you are in a very abusive situation, you just disconnect from mind, body, soul. It's called depersonalization, derealization, dissociation. There's a lot of different terms for it. And I think that that's what we're seeing. These ladies, Raquel and Jenna, when they found out what happened, they were hysterical crying. That's a healthy, appropriate response, right? That's a healthy, appropriate response to, wow, this is dark. Wow, I feel emotionally manipulated. Wow, this is so much worse than I thought it was. But Brynn's whole dog and fire meme, like this is fine, is I think how she's survived. But the trouble is it doesn't serve her and it's going to ruin her life unless she does the hard work, which I understand she's afraid to do because all survivors are afraid. I was terrified. Didn't want to do it.
But I don't think she even knows what it is, though, because she's like, oh, when I opened up about my childhood last season, it was like 17 years of therapy. It's not. It's like taking ayahuasca and saying that's 3 years of therapy or whatever Shep says. It's not. And not all therapy is equal. You can do 17 years of therapy and never get better. Like you have to find someone that works well with you. You have to find types of therapy that work with you and, and put in an effort. And it's not fun and it can be really tough and you may want to take breaks and, take time off therapy and then go back. But I don't know that she even knows what the work looks like because she lies so much that she lies to herself. And that's what's scary. Sure. It's scary to be around people who lie all the time and then actually believe the shit that comes out of their mouth. And that's when I'm like, I can't really be around you because you lie and it hurts people. And then you deny that it hurts people.
Right.
And you're just, you don't even realize you're doing it part of the time. And so you don't even know how to fix it if you don't see what you're doing.
Exactly. And I think what frustrates me, and again, we've touched on this now several times, is that as direct communicators who value words do matter and intent matters. We talk about intent versus impact. Even if your intent was not to hurt someone, if the impact was hurtful and caused wounds, you are accountable for your impact with your words. For me, words are sacred. That sounds dorky, but I'm not joking. I love words. I love writing. I love therapy. I love communication. I think it's just all brilliant. And I think that Brynn has spent so much of her life just like being so loosey-goosey with her words. And so it's like she doesn't even know the impact of words for herself because it completely loses impact,
Yeah, but she seems to know the impact when she's hurt by them.
Oh, of course she does. Well, that's narcissism, girl. That's like, oh my gosh, of course. Here's the thing. People, and I'm not saying Brynn is a narcissist, I want to be clear, but narcissistic traits and tendencies come with emotions. Like, people think people who are narcissistic don't get their feelings hurt. They do. It's just when it's about them.
Right. It's just not
when
when
about other people. And
she is so infuriating because she's caught in so many lies and then says she's not, it's on camera that she said that the reason that she liked to talk shit about Jessel is so that she could get closer with Sai and Aaron, and she missed being around them and talking shit. So that she brought up stuff about Jessel that ended up not being true. She mixed a couple different stories up and acts as if it's no big deal that she mixed those stories up, but it had a huge impact on Jessel. And I'm so glad that Jessel spoke up for herself and said Brynn even tried to quiet her by being I said, I'm sorry. And
that
she was
made me
no,
so mad.
Fuck you. Let me speak. And I loved that Jenna stood up for Jessel and told Brynn, stop trying to explain yourself and just say sorry, because there is no excuse.
There is no excuse. And what I think people like Brynn, not only does she not understand, I think she's not capable of repair. Because to repair a rupture in a relationship, you have to know how to do that. And I don't think Brynn has any idea how to do it. She certainly hasn't sought help around it. But to be clear with listeners about what Mandy's talking about, it's where we found out that Brynn lied about Jessel, claiming Jessel said she was someone other than Pavit was the love of her life. And so while there was a kernel of truth in this, in that Jessel said that they spoke about the craziest hookup, and Brynn knowingly perpetuated this false narrative, which has consequence. Brynn doesn't understand that things have emotional consequences, because when you cut yourself off from emotions, you don't have to experience that. Everybody else around you does. And so what we're seeing is, that funny meme about I go to therapy for the other people in my life who won't go to therapy. That's Brynn. She wants RHONY to save herself, to solve her problems, to fix her trauma. I think she feels, if I just am loved enough, if people call me mother, if I'm an icon, if people love me, I'll be something. I'll be worthwhile. But that doesn't come from, Brynn said, she spent $7,000 on a dress and she couldn't even answer Sai's question about what you do. So it's just so problematic. And in my opinion, I do not see a way for this group to authentically move forward if Brynn remains in the group. Number one. I think number two, Bravo has a responsibility, just like any other employer, when it comes to employees' mental health. And so I'm not suggesting what Brynn needs to do, but I am suggesting she needs to take some time for herself, maybe a pause, a little Dorinda pause. And what she does with that is up to her. Mandy, what do you think about that?
No, I think it's completely reasonable for that. I think it's harder for people to identify that type of mental health issue when it's not clear, like mania or hallucinating or something that's just so overt, or extreme depression. It's something that is, it's kind of I don't know the way, it's almost manipulative,
it's personality centered.
Personality centered. And I don't know how to, and most people don't feel comfortable saying or diagnosing or, you know what I mean? But I'm no, expert on any of this stuff. And I was I don't know, she reminds me of a person I know who is borderline personality. And she also has a little bits of someone else I know who has histrionic personality disorder. The histrionic person is always throwing themselves and their bodies at men, including married men, for attention, and is so weird sexually, just the weirdest person I've ever met in that way, and was diagnosed with this disorder. And there's the way that she acts about her sexuality and flirting feels pathological. It feels
for sure. For sure.
It's not cute. I had a problem with it last season where I was okay, but show us the real you. You can only put on this act for so long, but she does it in a way that's actually harmful.
For sure. It's harmful to her too, because it takes away her own power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what's wild to me, where it's I want to help Brynn, because it's And listen, to your point, you're right. Personality disorders can be challenging, but I do want to make sure people out there listening who may have a borderline personality disorder, histrionic, what have you, you're more than your diagnosis. And anything can get better with one key ingredient, and that is motivation.
Yeah.
If you are motivated to just even say, you know what, I'm sick of this, I got to do something different, it's going to take a while, but that is really all we actually need is the motivation. And Brynn just doesn't get it because she spends too much of her time trying to claim to be the victim instead of being willing to look at like what her role in all of this is. And one more thing that I do want to say before we wrap up is that going back to AA and I just want to say all healing is a marathon, not a sprint. And it's challenging. And along the way, there's obstacles and it's about learning how to deal with those obstacles and not avoid them. And it's hard, but it's possible and it's worth it. And I guess I just want people to really listen to their gut. If you're in a helping relationship with someone who you are feeling like your boundaries are violated or there's something that feels off, listen to your gut. Because here's the thing, I tell stories about how I had a therapist before this one who smoked a brisket during a session. And I was like, you know what? This ain't gonna work for you, girl.
So funny.
And by the way, when I talked to her about it, she got super defensive and she got really mad. And I was like, we're done here. Boop. So my point is, it can be discouraging. It can be hard. It can be challenging. Just don't give up. It's possible. There are people out there who will help you. But most importantly, what Brynn is teaching us all is the thing we need to do most is listen to our gut.
Totally.
If we can have our own back and listen to our gut and be our own advocate, we can do anything.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sorry for being armchair diagnosis. I feel like I can do it because I have no clinical training. So I'm not I don't know. This is what I think. I'm probably wrong. And
Sure.
I don't mean to throw around diagnoses like they're nothing. It's just that people that I had known in my life who prior to getting help had certain behaviors and they were odd and they made me very uncomfortable. And that ended up being what the diagnosis was. And, one of them has greatly improved life and the other has kind of refused to,
And there you have it. Right? Right? There
and there's so many, and there's a lot more people publicly that have, borderline personality disorder. I know sometimes people get incorrectly diagnosed and stuff too, but it is
a lot of trauma survivors actually incorrectly get diagnosed with that.
I think so. Yeah.
And it's I could do a whole other episode on that, but yeah, you're right.
But just in general, when someone is guilting you into making you feel a certain way, which is what I think Brynn does, she guilts people into being her friend and having her back. And you can't say anything because I was sexually assaulted. And using that to weaponize against Uba was just, and not saying that she wasn't sexually assaulted. I believe she was. I believe she was
too. Yeah.
But
Mandy, can I say that's a super important point that you bring up that I have to I just have to, I don't know, say something about it, is that we can't conflate these two things with Brynn not being a reliable narrator, but we believe women, right? We believe that she was sexually abused. I absolutely believe that's an accurate self-report. And so I'm grateful that you just said that. Please continue.
Yeah, no, it just is hard that she thinks that because she came out and said this, that she can then say anything, right? It gives her a reason to say anything, including to accuse someone of knowingly harming her and knowing about the rape. And that is the issue. It's no. And it was so interesting to watch her watch the final episode of the season while she was getting her hair and makeup done, where Sai, who I think is MVP of the reunion thus far, by actually asking very clear questions, where Sai says there is a difference between knowingly, maliciously saying something to someone and knowing their history of sexual assault and not clocking it.
Right.
Those are two different stories. And if you told a story two different ways, and one way could be taken horribly.
Well, right. And I think that, Uba, Uba clearly has a wonderful heart. In fact, she was the only woman who had empathy for Brynn, I would say, at the whole reunion, which tells you a lot about Uba's character, which also tells you why she was so upset. It would be like someone saying to me that I would do that. And I would rather die than hurt someone and weapon. You know what I mean? And so I feel like Uba, justice for Uba. And, Mandy, we do have to wrap up because we got to go talk about. So please let everybody know where they can find part 2 of this beautiful podcast.
Yes, you can listen to my podcast, Is This Real Life with Mandy Slutsker. It comes out on Sundays. And we will be discussing the Real Housewives of Potomac and Salt Lake reunion.
And you all can count on weekly episodes from here on out. Yabish is going to be covering Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Southern Charm, Summer House is coming back.
Yeah,
I am so excited. So excited. Mine too. So please stay tuned for many more M&M hours to come, many more YBTs. I'll also be posting, check out my Patreon, Your Bish Therapist, a Spreaker Supporters Club. You will all be getting ad-free eps from here on out. So thank you all so much. I hope you enjoyed this extra long episode, and ta-ta for now. Disclaimer. Posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Bish Therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Great Heart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, hear on YBT podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email and or social media does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.